I'm Bob Harris of Decorative Concrete Institute. Welcome to Duramin's training and educational series for industrial and decorative flooring systems. We're getting ready to demonstrate the Lumiere Reflective Designer Epoxy flooring system on this panel. We're going to start off by using our Purdue EO2 100% solids material, and what we're going to do is we're going to tint it with the actual Lumiere metallic pigments. It's really important when you're doing a system like this that we change the background color. What I mean by that is this is a gray concrete, as you can see, and if we just rolled a clear primer over the surface, when we came with our body coat, you would see some of that gray bleeding through. So oftentimes what we'll do is use the actual metallic pigment powder, which is what we're going to demonstrate here, or we might consider priming with a black 100% solids epoxy, like E20. And once that dries, then we come back over it with our body coat, and that's when we can really express our artistic flair, if you will, working with different colors, bleeding different colors, spritzing solvents to create certain effects. So what we've done is this is a 2-to-1 system. It's 2 parts A to 1 part B, and so we've already pre-weighed it. What we're going to do is we're going to start mixing. Now, what we like to do is pre-blend the metallic powder into the A side. We'll mix that for several minutes, and then what we'll do is once that's thoroughly mixed, we'll mix the B into the A, mix that for 3 minutes, and then we're ready to prime. Why do you prime? Well, we already talked about one reason that you would prime. One reason is to change the background color, but also is to seal the pores of the concrete. Oftentimes when you're working with epoxy coatings or any type of coating for that matter, you can achieve what's called outgassing bubbles, and that's where the liquid of the epoxy resin is permeating down into the pores and the porosity of the concrete, and it's displacing the air. And the air only has one way to go, and that's back up through your coating. It's pretty frustrating when you come back on a floor and you see that. So to eliminate or avoid that from happening, we're priming. So 2 reasons to avoid outgassing bubbles and to change the background color. On a large project, you can simply make a whole large batch of this material, and you can put it down with a notch squeegee. And notch squeegees come much wider, and of course the little ridges here is what dictates the mill thickness that you're putting it down. So the logic would be notch squeegeeing the material down, followed by a back roll for the prime coat only. Okay? We're going to just dump onto the surface here and roll it down, and you're typically applying this material as a primer somewhere between 10 mils up to 15 mils thick as a primer. So we're going to get busy. We're going to start mixing our product up, and then Brian, if you don't mind, when you're done, if you'd bring a rag back, okay? Thank you. So here we go. Once I said we've already have our measurements 2-to-1, 2A's to 1B of the EO2, and now we've got our pre-measured metallic pigment, and we're mixing it right in to the A side. We're going to use a squirrel mixer. All right, that's good and mixed. So now what I'd like to do is we're going to come through and we're going to mix our B side right into the A. Here is where we're going to want to mix for roughly 3 minutes. Okay, we've mixed our system here, and what we're going to do, I like to just take a stir stick and make sure that we have all of the mix off of the sides, perhaps any metallic particles. So it's just a good idea to go ahead and take a stir stick and clean the sides of the buckets. So now what we're going to do is we'll take this out of here. Take that out of here. Thank you. And we're simply going to start applying this material with our roller. This is really important to prime like we've just discussed. As you can see, we're changing that gray background color, and also it's going to really eliminate the chance for the outgassing bubbles. We're getting ready for our next step on our Lumiere Reflective Designer epoxy flooring system. Remember, to recap, what we did here is we actually started with a profile of about 3 via dustless grinding with a 40 grit metal bond diamond. We cleaned the residual dust, and then we primed with EO2. We actually put the metallic pigment into the A side, if you recall, mixed that, and then mixed both A and B together for a minimum of 3 minutes, and we primed the surface. Now, it's not uncommon to experience what we call outgassing bubbles. This is very porous concrete, and sometimes you'll see that, and it certainly happened here. So if you look, you can see some bubbles and blisters, and what we want to do is knock all those back flat and sand it. So we've got a 100 grit sanding screen on the bottom of our floor machine here. It might take us 2 minutes on this whole area. What we'll do after we sand it, we're going to vacuum the dust, and then we're going to take solvent and clean the surface really clean with solvent wiping. Also, let's say that we didn't have any of these blisters or bubbles, and the concrete didn't yield that. There's really not a reason to sand it if you're within a 24-hour window. So if you exceed that 24-hour window, always sand it, or if you get the bubbles or the blisters, always sand it. So we're going to demonstrate the sanding of the EO2 primer. Brian's going to start vacuuming right now. We'll turn that vacuum on. We've sanded off with a 100 grit screen and vacuumed the residual dust. Now it's time to solvent wipe, and this is an important step. It simply just gets any particulate off of the surface. We're going to be solvent wiping with acetone. Usually acetone is the best solvent to use. Oftentimes I get asked, what about xylene or MEK? And the problem with that is those are not real fast flashing solvents where acetone flashes off almost instantly. So once we've wiped the residual down with our acetone, typically we want to let it off gas and let it sit for about 10 to 15 minutes before you go with your application of the next step. So I'm just going to solvent wipe here.